Hey there, happy gardeners. I hope you're all doing wonderfully today. I'm Fionuala. I live, garden, and work in Zone 9B, a little bit outside of Petaluma in beautiful Northern California. And today we're going to talk about lavender. Now, lavender is a wonderful ornamental plant that we all know and love at this point, but it's been cultivated for thousands of years. There's first records of it being used by the ancient Egyptians in the year 2000 BC or 2,500 BC, which is pretty amazing. And those records show that they were used for healing properties, for aromatic properties, and even for mummification of all things. So fast forward to the Romans, who come along a couple of thousand years later, and they too love it. They use it in their baths. They use it for healing. They use it for medicinal properties. And not just that, but in their travels around Europe, conquering here, there, and everywhere, they bring it with them. So medieval times, we've got the ancient Europeans using it for pest repellent qualities, for cleaning properties, and for medicinal properties too. Now, lavender comes from the old word, the Latin word lavare, which means to wash. So they loved it for their washing, for their fragrance, for the smelling clean and wonderful, which wasn't a huge big deal in ancient medieval times, but obviously meant something. So then bring it towards the Victorian era, where it becomes this symbol of love and purity and, again, the beautiful fragrance of it and the beauty of it. And obviously, we still love lavenders, or I wouldn't have a whole 40, 50 plants right behind me here. So lavender, as we know and love it as gardeners, can be broken up into a number of different types. But just so you know, there's over 30 species of lavenders out there, which is pretty amazing. Horticulturally, we've got it down to, I don't know, 6 or 7 species. But within those 6 or 7, there are so many cultivars. What I've got right behind me here is one of the English lavenders, Lavandula angustifolia. Anywhere you see a lavender that says angustifolia, that's an English lavender. This one here is Munstead, which I am so fond of. I will tell you about that in a minute, the why and the wherefore. But yeah, let's start with the types. You've got your English lavenders, Lavender angustifolia. It is tough. It can go down to zone 5. It can put up with a little more humidity than some of the others that we grow around here in zone 9B. In fact, I've even seen up in Quebec, which I don't know what their zone is, but it's probably zone 5 or even lower, and they get cold up there. It's the second largest lavender growing place in North America. And it was extraordinary. It was all English lavenders, fields and fields of it. If I can find a picture of that, I will throw it up here because it was absolutely amazing. So yeah, English lavenders can put up with more humidity, more rain, more cold than a lot of the lavenders that we love and know around here in zone 9B. And this Munstead here is one of the English, and it's in a spot that gets a little bit of shade now and again, but obviously you can see it does not care. Another one of my favorite English lavenders is Thumbelina Lee. It's a little dwarf variety, small, cute, puts up with the clay soil that we've got over here in East Petaluma. And it's one of those ones that you can grow in containers or have at the front of the border. I'll show you that in a moment. Lavender dentata. Oh my goodness. So dentata, as you probably can guess, means toothed, toothy, like teeth. Dentata, dentist. And the dentata varieties have toothy little leaves. I've got a really great dentata hybrid up in the garden up here. I'll show you in a minute. They are seldom out of bloom. They're quite amazing. Then we've got the spike lavenders, which is latifolia, We don't know too many of the straight spike lavenders, but what we do know and love around here are the Lavandins, which is a hybrid between the spike lavender and the angustifolia lavenders. Then we have the Spanish lavenders. Now, Spanish lavenders are those tough varieties that you can use in parking strips and whatnot that never ever seem to be in a not blooming phase, which makes it hard for people to know when to prune them. Blooming or not, you prune them twice a year to stop them from getting woody. That is one of the biggest complaints about Spanish lavenders. It just gets woody and I need to replace it every couple of years. Well, you wouldn't have to replace it every couple of years if you pruned it hard twice a year. But like I said, that is difficult because it's always blooming and it's very hard to prune a plant that's always blooming. But Spanish lavenders are those cute flowers that look a little bit like pine cones with bunny ears on top. I've got a few varieties of those. Okay, and then the final one that I want to talk about, even though I don't have any to show you, is multifida or multifida. It's royal candle lavender, and it is so pretty. It's ferny, it's a little more delicate, and it's just a little more delicate. I don't have any that I'm growing here, and I don't have any that I'm growing at work, but it's one of those lavenders. When I see it anywhere else, I always stop, I always look. It's like a little candelabra sort of a lavender, and it's really, really pretty. So they're the top 5 types of lavender, most often found horticulturally, ornamentally, and in your garden centers. And I've got quite a few of them at Cottage, which I'll show you in a bit. But what I wanted to tell you, most of these lavenders, almost everybody, have similar growing needs. So let me get into those. Before I forget, I want to talk a little bit more about the Lavandin varieties of lavender. Those are crosses between the spike lavender, which is Lavandula latifolia, and the English lavenders, which are the English lavenders, known for their fragrance and their beauty and their gorgeous blooms. Around here in Zone 9, lavandins are seen in the wineries and in the gardens, the formal gardens, informal gardens. They're the ones best known for their fragrance, their essential oils, those beautiful long big blooms. I've got a phenomenal variety of lavandin here in my own garden as I was testing it out to see how I liked it and to extend the whole bloom periods of lavender in my own garden. But phenomenal is one of the varieties that are really well known and loved. We've also got Grosso, we've got Provence. I think Provence might be my favorite lavandin, but they're the ones that you make into those beautiful lavender wands, those perfume sachets, aromatherapy. They're really, really amazing. And they come from the English lavender types, Lavandula angustifolia, of which Munstead is one of my favorites. As you can see, I've got a whole bunch of them here behind me. I'm sitting right in it because the fragrance is absolutely amazing. And the other thing I absolutely love about Munstead is that it's the first to bloom. Every year, it's the first to bloom in my garden, which just makes me really happy. You know summer's coming, you know you can just sit in among the fragrance. The bloom color is quite amazing. And Munstead is named for Munstead Wood, a beloved garden of Gertrude Jekyll, who is well known amongst all of us gardening enthusiasts. So yeah, look at Munstead. First to bloom, makes my pollinators really, really happy. I've got bumblebees, I've got honeybees, and I absolutely love the flower. The color is amazing, the form is amazing. The stalks are nice and long for such a compact plant, and it is tough and resilient and minimal care. The key to keep this beautiful plant beautiful is I prune it twice a year. Once after it finishes blooming, and again in January to tighten up the, what at that point looks like a pretty scrubby little shrub. So yeah, and this is what you get. We're just the first week of June, and it is on fire with gorgeous blue blooms. Another wonderful thing about lavender is that it is a fabulous habitat plant. Pollinators adore it. Right now, I've got a bumblebee, a couple of honeybees. You see butterflies on it too. It's an incredible resource for pollinators in your garden. So even if you don't care for the look of it, it's a fabulous plant for your pollinator garden. But who wouldn't care for the look of it? I mean, look. I mentioned lavandins a little bit earlier and the variety called phenomenal. That's what this is. As you can see, it's bigger and bushier than my Munstead over there. It gets taller and has incredibly long wands with the flower spike at the very top. It's a little later to bloom, so you're not seeing it in its full glory, but you can see how big it is. Look at this. The other great thing about phenomenal is that it puts up with an awful lot more moisture and even iffier soils than most lavender intermediate types. So it's a great choice that way. The foliage looks good all year, way better than Munstead, but I love Munstead. That is my top favorite lavender of all. Phenomenal is pretty close though. So this is the dentata that I was telling you about, La Diva Imperial, and it's a little bit out of hand because it is hard to know when to prune this. I mean, I know when to prune it, but it's hard to prune it when you see all the pollinators on it. It blooms pretty much all year long. This one is called La Diva Imperial, and it constantly has flowers on it. So this is my pollinator garden up here. It's hard for me to prune it, but ideally what you do is you prune this twice a year. Keep it more tight and compact, full of blooms the rest of the time. And yeah, have a look at the leaves here. You can see what I mean about dentata. See the little toothiness on them? That's how you know it's a dentata or dentata hybrid. Toothy. So let's talk about Spanish lavenders again for a moment. This one here is Otto Quast. It's the one that everybody is most familiar with, this one right here. You can see the little pine cone sort of shaped flower heads and the little bunny ears on top. And it's such a great non-stop producer of blooms. Really likes where we are around here. Loves those dry summers, gritty soil, all that type of thing. Really low maintenance. But like I mentioned before, the key to keeping them, any of the Spanish lavenders, fresh and blooming and not to get woody is to prune them twice a year. Here's another gorgeous little Spanish lavender. It's a new one called La Diva Papillon Deep Rose. It's a pink one. And again, the little bunny ears on top of the gorgeous little flower head. It's a little more compact, but again, prune it twice a year. Stop it from getting woody. These are the types of lavenders that are great in a parking strip or one of those incredibly low maintenance sections of your garden. You really don't have to do an awful lot except irrigate during the summer months, make sure the soil drains well, and prune back twice a year to stop it from getting woody. This beauty is another Spanish lavender grown primarily for its bright, bright silver foliage. It's silver anouk, and I really do like this one primarily for its foliage, but it does bloom too, which is great. And this brings me to, what does a lavender need to keep it happy? So lavender loves full sun. It loves excellent drainage. There's nothing worse for a lavender than wet feet, which means winter rains and the lavender is sitting in a puddle and the roots are drowning. They like a lot of oxygen around the root system. So whatever you do when you're planting lavender in your yard, make sure the drainage is excellent. Now where I live, over in my garden, sandy loam. It's incredibly sandy. Makes it awfully easy for gophers to swim on through, but it's also really good for lavender. Sandy loam, a lot of aeration in that soil. But if you've got clay soil, there's lots of things that you can do to make sure that your lavender is happy. You can plant your lavender in raised beds. You can create a mound, plant it there. Now where we live, it doesn't rain from like April to October, so that's never the problem. It's those fall and winter rains that can cause the problem. So we talked about sunlight, at least 6 hours of sun. Afternoon sun is really important. We talked about soil drainage needing to be excellent. Good drainage is vital. Watering, oh, I got to show you this one. This one is Merlot. It's an Allardii type. This one is grown primarily for its beautifully variegated foliage. The foliage smells amazing, and it does have flowers too. So yeah, sunlight, drainage, watering. So you don't need to water this in general. They're really, really drought tolerant. But here in our particular zone, it doesn't rain from April to October. So you do want to make sure you set up an irrigation system to make sure that your lavender receives regular water, but that it's never sitting in water. You want to make sure that those roots have lots of oxygen able to reach them. This one here is Grosso. It's another Lavandin hybrid. You can see it's not blooming yet, but it's almost there. We talked about Thumbelina Lee a little bit earlier, an angustifolia that doesn't get very big. Well, here it is in our pollinator garden at Cottage. You can see it doesn't even reach my knees. It's an angustifolia, so it's got those beautiful little blooms. It blooms early. It also gets a little bit of shade down here. And as you can see, it doesn't bother it one bit. But look how little it is and how compact it is and just how adorable it is. I absolutely love it, and so do the pollinators. There's one more thing to talk about when we're talking about lavender is actually two. Feeding. You really don't want to feed them very much, and definitely do not give them a fertilizer that's high in nitrogen. It makes the foliage too soft and too green, and you lose the bloom factor of lavender, which is really why we're growing it. But you can fertilize it with a well-balanced, light granular fertilizer in spring that is never objected to, or something like a low nitrogen, higher in the other two. It appreciates it, but there's really no need to do such a thing. I never fertilize that Munstead that I've got at my home, and you saw what it does. Absolutely stunning. And that brings me to pruning. Pruning lavender. Get to know the type of lavender that you've got, and then, for example, if it's one of the Lavandins, you're going to want to prune it pretty lightly after it's finished blooming, and a little bit harder in January, right before the new growth comes out. Same works for the dentata types. You just do it twice. It never stops blooming, but you do it twice. Same for the Spanish lavenders. Just prune them twice. You have to pick a time where you can do without the blooms, because basically they will keep blooming the whole time. That's how they get woody, they just don't stop. But if you want to keep it tight and compact and in place rather than all rangy, prune it twice a year. And by that, I mean shear it back, shape it the way you want it. You're promoting new growth, new blooms, more beautiful flowers. Hey, so I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this visit to my garden. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button, share it with your friends, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and drop me a comment. I would love to hear your experiences with lavender. It's really an extraordinary thing. For thousands and thousands of years, we have loved and grown lavender for one reason or another, for aromatherapy, for its healing properties, for culinary purposes too, for its value in the pollinator garden, and just for sheer beauty. So that was fun for me to share it with you. Really hope you enjoyed it. Come stop by Cottage Gardens anytime, say hi, drop me a line like I said, email, follow me on Facebook or Instagram. And see you next time. Happy gardening.